Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Parece bom demais pra ser verdade, né? Pois é. No ensino técnico do Senac, isso é possível. É ensino médio junto com formação técnica, que acontece durante os 3 anos. Lá, eles usam metodologia para projetos, desenvolvendo competências como resolução de problemas, pensamento crítico e colaboração, além de valores éticos e sustentáveis. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to BookTok for BookTok, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This summer, we are hosting our Romantasy Edition of a book club while we prepare for our 15-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's A House of Sky and Breath.
This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
And each week we'll discuss one book from our Summer Book Club roster. By using our literary backgrounds, we'll provide our first blush analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This week, we'll be talking about Faebound by Saara El-Arifi.
Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, with a special shout out to our April 2024 Trophy Wives. Thank you Mallory, Anya, Fiction Fan, Shelby, Liv, Amber, Catherine, Veronica, Anne, Jackie, Violet, Nicole, Emilade, Jessica, Helen, Danica, Carissa, Colleen, Alexa, Sam, and Allison. To learn more about how to become a trophy wife, visit patreon.com/BookTok for BookTok. Thanks, Trophy Wives! The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of the many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text. Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
After Urine becomes Faebound, there just wasn't enough movement.
Yeah.
I think they were so stagnant staying in the Fae stronghold. And I understand why, but it's like they sat and smoked a joint for like the next 60% of the book. Like there was nothing to do.
I mean, nothing was at stake. Like, you know, I wonder how it would have been like if the murders were brought up sooner, if other people were murdered, have a mystery.
Yeah.
There was like no plot at that point to like get them through. Because at that point, you're just kind of waiting until this other thing happens.
Right. There's the training sequence, but the training sequence is not enough to keep us engaged. And I agree. It would have been great for there to have been murders and it become a whodunit. And Urine is helping Fury find the murderer. And then it becomes more compelling, right? Because they're helping each other, but they don't like each other. And it honestly would have ended up being like Earth and Blood. But I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, you're going from enemies to lovers, and and this is an enemies to lovers that I love. Like in the sense, like you're starting off with you killed her brother. I couldn't ask for better enemies. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I couldn't have wanted more.
Yeah, I really, really wanted to like it.
Yeah.
Or like their relationship.
No, me too. Yeah.
And yeah, it just, there was something missing.
There was something, I know, like, and that's where the ending for me, I just kind of, like, all the other little, moments, right? I was expecting Ryan to be human.
Oh.
With the whole, like, he smelled different, and they kept talking about, like, you need all three, and I was like, well, Ryan seems important. So, you know, like, him having I can't remember, I just finished reading this, too. The special animal thingy. Someone wrote it in the comments.
Obia.
Obia, thank you. Like, he had an obia, and, like, the obia was what was falling Lettle around. Some of the things that you kinda I think she did a good job of the author. I think Saara did a really good job of just kind of, like, of the misdirects, at least for me. Like, I was like, 'cause I was like, "Oh, Lettle's gonna get an obia too," and then it ended up being Ryan's obia who's looking after her. Like, there was enough misdirect there where I enjoyed it. I figured out that the, um prisoner,
Comey.
Comey, yeah, I figured that out, like, not early, but the second they gave the first clue of
Oh,
how
yeah.
early did you figure it out?
Oh, instantly. As soon as he was introduced, I was like, "Oh, that's the Old
Okay,
King."
well, not all of us can figure it out that quickly, but it's like, really, that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think something I would like to see, in whatever book comes follow up follows up after Faebound. I'm assuming there's gonna be a second book based on the ending. I think Sarah can fine-tune some of her foreshadowing
Mhm.
and clues because I felt like a lot of the twists and turns were very predictable for me.
Okay.
Like, I the only thing I didn't foresee was, Ryan
Yeah.
being Faebound as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything else, I kind of was like, "Yep, that's what I thought was gonna
Mm.
happen."
And I think that comes back to I don't know how it comes back to it, but while you're talking, the connection was made, so I'm gonna see if I can get to that.
Okay.
I think it comes back to, like, what's at stake.
Yeah.
That because you're it's the distraction thing, right?
Mhm.
If something over here is at stake and you're so busy looking over here, you won't be able to see those little subtle clues.
Right.
But if what you're getting is a bunch of conversation and you're getting, like, here are those clues, they become
Yeah.
less subtle.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the beginning, the first part was so solid because so much was at stake there.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. It went from a lot of movement to I'm still, like, not mad, but I'm still, like, going back to it because it's still I'm processing why did this just not the ending just didn't hit because I was so excited at the beginning with it.
Yeah, and let's talk about why the beginning was exciting.
Mhm.
The idea of Drumfire
Yeah.
and how the elves use magic,
Mhm.
and it's through the obia, but not, through the skin of the obia, the entrails of the obia.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I thought it was so cool to create magical objects and to use drums to generate
Mhm.
magic as a weapon. So unique compared to anything else I've ever read.
Yeah. I mean, even her, like, urine, like, being exiled and,
Oh,
all
yeah.
this other stuff. Like, it was, like, high stakes.
Yeah. Well, and, I mean, for me, it was the world building at the start.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not just the high stakes, it's also
Mm,
the world building that accompanied it,
fair.
and I did feel like she did a great job with the world building. I don't know that all of our readers or all of our listeners loved the world building, some did,
Uh-huh.
some didn't, but I thought it was fascinating, and I thought it intermingled really well with the high stakes plot journey we were going on
Mhm.
until everybody was reunited.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on this world building journey with you. I agree that the first half, when we're in the Elfland, right? The
Mhm.
world building is so unique. Then we get into the Feylands, and it really seemed almost like more not modern, but like they talk about universities. They talk about like there's a library. There's
Mm,
like it almost seemed like in order to show that this paradise is so amazing, they kind of had to like it had to be a little bit more quote unquote modernized
mm,
in
mm,
a way, but now you're taking away some of this interesting world and
mhm.
you're making it in a way that it's almost too relatable to me.
Yeah, yeah, I understand, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I wish I had gotten to see more of the war between the different elven
Mhm.
groups. I wanted to see more of that society,
Yeah.
um, because it felt more unique than the Fae society.
Yeah. And everything going on with the elf war was very interesting, especially when I think about Lettle's commentary on it.
Mhm.
I loved her commentary on the war. It's just so I feel like it's a very universal experience of like, okay, great. These two parties are fighting, these two countries, governments, kingdoms, whatever you want to call it, are fighting. And what does that do for the people?
Yeah.
Other than die, other
Yeah.
than make it harder. Like
Right.
what I mean, I loved her going from one kingdom to Crescent, like going from Waning to Crescent, and how she was like, no, we can just go through. Like, who are we? We're people.
Yeah.
This isn't about us.
Yeah.
And I would like to shift the conversation a little bit.
Sure.
To things that I did like.
Okay.
Urine and everyone pointing out how her chieftain lover was not who she thought she was.
I agree. I loved how dedicated and how much faith Urine had in her chieftain and the campaign she
Yeah.
was elected on, basically, and how everyone was like, yeah, but look at her actions.
Yeah.
That she obviously does not care about the people the way she says she cares about the people.
Yep.
I thought that was a great, interesting journey, and I would love to see that continued in a follow-up book.
Yeah, me too. It was because you can tell she was really grappling with it.
Yeah.
And that comes down to the ending where I didn't feel like we landed on a conclusion.
Right.
It didn't feel like you know what? I'm going to choose my own narrative. Screw you all. Because I feel like that would have been fun for, as a writer and as a reader, to see her choose the chieftain over Fury. Because it didn't feel like she chose anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
At
I
the
agree.
end.
I agree with that. And that, I think, goes back to what we were talking about with Urine's characterization, right? Because that is muddy. Because part of her motivation is her belief that her chieftain will essentially bring peace and that all the starving children will be able to have a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And she's dedicated to those people who she was once like, who, begged, borrowed, and stole. But I didn't feel that conviction after the interchange, the exchange of fluids between her and Fury.
The exchange of fluids?
My brain is so fried. I
think it's called
apologize.
sex, Amy. I think that's what that's called.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going anymore. Sorry. I lost my
No.
train of thought.
I see what you're saying, and like things change once they had sex.
Yeah.
And I don't think that
That
the
wasn't explored
narration
enough.
Yeah, and I don't think the narration went like actually showed that change either.
Yeah, that's fair. I think and maybe this is a personal preference thing.
Yeah.
I don't think the narrative style worked for me because we're talking about this world building and how much we found the elven world very, very interesting. But I had no desire by the end of the book to read another book about the elven world because I felt so burned by the narrative style.
Oh, interesting.
While we were in the Fae part of the world.
Can you talk about the narrative style, the things that maybe you didn't care about as much?
I think there was some, and this is not meant to be a critique this is not mean-spirited. This is just a fact of, I believe Saara might be a more junior author.
Yeah.
The narrative style was not complex. I remember listening to parts of the book where it was Urine, blah, blah, blah. Urine said, blah, blah, blah. Ryan said, blah, blah, blah. Little said, blah, blah, blah. Comey said. And I just kept counting the lines and I was like, there were a dozen lines of dialogue and it all ended with the same dialogue tag.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't, it was either dialogue or it was
exposition. I know exactly what you're talking about though.
And I think that obviously can be developed over time. I would hope that Saara develops that as she continues to write, but I just wasn't compelled by the writing, the prose.
It was a word that kept popping up in my head throughout listening, and it was simple. And again, to me, that wasn't a negative thing. I think that there is a lot of strength in simplicity of writing. And there were moments where I think she nailed it, and I think that she did a really good job with the simplicity of it. I think some of the world building really helps when there's like that like it just like this is what it is, right? Like I think
Mhm.
those moments are really good, and I can see what she was going for in the times where it felt like a miss, where it was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're doing the thing that you were doing here, and it really landed here, but over here it doesn't feel as much." And
Yeah.
I agree. And whether that's like I think those are great moments for when like high emotions, where like those
Mhm.
simple moments when there's just a lot happening. I think stylistically, this is easily just a preference thing. This
Yeah.
doesn't mean that this is like the correct answer, but preference. I do like seeing it when the simple description and simplicity of writing happens with much more grand emotions or grand
Mhm.
settings.
Mhm.
And sometimes it felt like the simplicity was happening at too simple of a scene.
Yeah, and I think that's what I found too. It was when, all the elves come together to digest information,
Mhm.
and it's during just the dinner time conversations. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there's not enough happening
Yeah.
for this for the momentum to be slowed down in this way.
Yeah. And that's absolutely could just be a style choice that you and I don't jive with.
Yeah.
There were times where I felt like it was really good for the writing. I thought it lifted it up. But then those moments that you're talking about, I struggled. I got stuck on those moments too.
Yeah, I think for me, what it comes down to is it felt like there were strong bookends for the most part. Like
Yeah.
she had Sarah had a very clear vision for the beginning, a
Yeah.
very clear vision for the end, and the middle was less clear. It was a little
Mhm.
murky, and it felt like the narrative and the characters were really struggling to get through from point A to point B.
Yeah. Yeah, because even the things that were at stake, them trying to get out,
Mhm.
even Lettles and Ryan's relationship, like things were just kind of given up
Yeah.
pretty quickly. Ryan feels rejected. Is he trying to get her back?
Yeah. Right.
Or is Lettle trying to like, is she gonna throw more like I say this in a good way, temper tantrums, like give me the angst, like is
Yeah.
she gonna do something? Or where's the breakout attempt?
Yeah.
That's another thing. They kept being told they can't get out, and they
And they never
accepted it,
tried.
and
Yeah.
they never tried,
Agreed.
and it was a whole lot of, like, "What about this route? Nope,
Mhm. Yeah.
can't do it." And it's like, "But you guys didn't even poke at it. You didn't even
Yeah.
try."
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you. And I think if I could rewrite this book myself,
Yeah.
I think the thing I would change is either let's have some breakout attempts, let's have some action, or let's have some of the reveals because all the reveals were crowded at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Could we have some reveals peppered in? Like, could we have found out who Comey was earlier? I don't think that would
Yeah.
have hurt,
I agree.
right? Could we have found out that
The elves were helping or the fae were helping the elves.
exactly.
I think that could have happened earlier,
Right.
and that would have been great to see Urine struggle with that.
Right, because I felt like that would have given her more reason to wanna go back to the chieftain because
Mhm.
that's important information that yeah, is being used against them. So, I felt like there was an imbalance, and I felt like some of the things that were hinted at for so long could have
Yeah.
been shifted around,
Yeah.
and that would have made the story continue to move forward for me.
Absolutely.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
It was even the action moments towards the end, like Ryan killing Comey. I was like so confused if it happened or not. It just kind of like sped through it. And we talked about this prophecy. He talked about what he did to his mom. We spent time with it. We've hinted at it. And this like grand moment. And it's like, I get what you're saying, as in Ryan, as if I'm talking to him. It's like, I get what you're doing. You're killing the person that like you said you'd kill, and you're not going to waste time with it. So like, yeah, there's efficiency in that. I get it.
Yeah.
How else can you draw, like, how do we make more to it? Because that was like what you're finally getting to a high stakes moment, and it happened so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would have liked to have seen Ryan struggle with that of like, oh, here's this person who I've actually
grown to care about,
grown to like.
Yeah.
Right. Do I actually really want to kill him?
Yeah. Because I also was really confused on where Comey landed at the end, because it's like, wait, so were you faking this? Like, I'm so grateful to be out, and I'm just going to be pretending like I'm this drunkard? Or like, was that, I didn't know where that landed. Where was he actually captive for those 10 years, and his mind has slipped just as they described, and he's trying to live, and maybe he's like really repented in certain ways because now he's got to meet people from Waiting. Like at one point in the beginning he says like, we're just elves here. Or is he actually been this like grand manipulator that they kind of placed him in there? Maybe he wasn't in the prison for that long. Maybe he did something wrong, or I don't know. Like, it just wasn't, because then I'm like, you're saying that Comey got information out to the elves. So what? That means once the information was there, they just locked him up? Or, like, so it's stuff like that just kind of, there wasn't clarity for me there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like he was overly villainized so that it would misdirect who had really killed the queens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but then it has me just question, then what was he up to?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, my understanding is that he was kidnapped and used as a go-between between the Crescent elves and the Fae.
Okay.
So that the Crescent elves could win against the Waning elves, and in doing so would give the Fae some land. And they were holding him hostage, basically. The Fae were holding him hostage to complete this goal. And the queens gave up on it when Ryan, Euron, and Lettel came to town, because suddenly the blight was gone. I loved that we had another blight. I was just like, oh my gosh, Faes and their blights.
Wouldn't be a Fae if it wasn't a blight.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, so even what you're describing, though, still doesn't make sense for what happened, though, because then you also have, like, I get all that, and he's considered a prisoner of war, and, I feel like that's kind of like a shitty way of going about, like, we're partners, so we're going to actually, and like, arrest your leader, but okay, like, prisoner of war, you'd expect a little, especially someone that you're working with them, you'd expect like some, hey, have a cottage. But then, like, where's the misdirect? Like, we made this whole thing that he was so shady and so sketchy, because then it was like, Lettel goes into the room that he was in, and it was the war room, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's getting info to the elves. Well, the elves were already getting information from them.
My understanding was it was supposed to be, I
you see what I mean? Like, so then where was he? Like, what was he up to?
I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know either. So I think it just, like, the times that we finally get these high stakes, these oh my god, what's going to happen, it gets a little muddied.
Yeah. The political intrigue was not intriguing enough,
Yeah.
or clear at least.
It felt like everything was kind of walked back every few steps. Like something would happen, and then things would be immediately kind of walked back on.
Yeah.
Of like, the queen's died, and Little's being blamed for it, but like not really anymore. Or, like all these things are happening. Oh, okay, we're gonna back up, but not too much. So then it just was a lot of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it was that kind of pacing throughout.
It does make me curious because the author very clearly had a vision for the end.
Yeah.
Because of how unfocused Euron seems in her motivations, that it makes me curious what the author intends for what comes after in whatever follow-up book there is.
This is the first book that I have wanted to, that we've covered so far in our series, that I've wanted to like really see what comes after. I don't know. I mean, I'm too busy. We're reading a bunch of other books for our summer series, but I would love to know how it goes and how she progresses as an author.
Yeah.
Because
they're
there.
Faebound came out at the start of this year, so there is no second book to go to yet.
Well, crap. I hope she doesn't listen to this at all. Like, I mean, and if you do, I hope you hear, I hope you see hope you get our notes. Okay, so let's talk about some other good things. So I don't want to keep harping on this book. Like, there are so many good things to it. And one of those things in particular, which our listeners have said, is our Obia. Obia. They're so freaking cute.
I love the idea of mental connections. So we've seen something kind of similar with
Fourth Wing.
Rebecca Yarros's in Rebecca Yarros's Fourth Wing, which we cover next week.
Mm-hmm.
The dragons and their writers have a mental connection. They talk to each other. I love this idea that the Obia, I mean, I think I do love this idea. The Obia aren't fully like not sentient, but fully cognizant, or not their full selves until they make
the connection. Yeah. It was a good take on it.
Yeah, I thought that was very, very interesting. And they don't really have very many memories of the time before once they've made their connection to their whomever they're Faebound to. It was a very, again, unique take compared to what I've read before. So I did find that interesting.
Yeah, super cute. Love that they're just like they're big old elk essentially, like antlers. Kind of imagine them like little hippos mixed with elks. I'm sure there was a real description, but I like my version.
I liked the idea of the Obias. I could not pin down what they actually look like.
Yeah,
they have paws.
Yeah, and they have antlers.
And they have thick coats. I mean, to me, it sounded like a mountain lion with antlers.
Oh.
Or like a wolf with antlers. Like, I couldn't figure out which one it was supposed to be.
Well, I have no idea how a little baby hippo came into my mind. I was thinking like a pygmy hippo.
Okay.
They are very cute. Other than that, I like that, unlike other things that we get, and we'll compare it to Fourth Wing because, like you said, we're covering that next week and it's on the mind. But unlike something like Fourth Wing where they come in seasoned, these dragons have their own distinct personalities. They've been around for hundreds of years, right?
And they have their own government system and their own rules.
Which is cool too. But I love that the Obias are so innocent to a conscious, like to your like conscious of what you're thinking, that they're willing to say these things that would be like, well, I don't need to look, and this hurt my feelings, like, like, damn, you don't have to point this out.
Yeah.
But it was a very pure way of going about it and thinking about it. And I really liked that idea of this part of your soul connection is willing to be this honest with you. I think Euron's example, like the way that she reacted, makes sense because she's a very patient person. So it makes sense that she wasn't like, damn, back off, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like some people might, some people being me. And I do think though that I would like to see her mull things over more.
Interesting. To me, I think the innocence of the Obia comes across almost childlike, and
Yeah.
I wonder to what extent the relationship between the Obia and the Fae is almost
Oh.
parental, and so you tolerate things that a child says because they don't really know better.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of how I viewed that relationship.
But it's also, like, they're so soul connected, like, they're just an
Mhm.
extension of yourself that it was very much like I don't know, like, it felt like there was immediate, like, "Oh, I love you, you're amazing and so sweet," which I'm okay with, but, like, that's how Ryan was even like, in the
Mhm.
last little,
Yeah.
epilogue with him where it's like, "The second I'm near them, I feel better."
Yeah.
Versus, like, when you have something, that is a bit more because 'cause you're right, like, sentient is an interesting choice of word there because they are sentient, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like, if you had a creature that was a little bit more pushing or pushback that was able to say, like, "Hey, what you're saying is weird. Let's talk about this," you know?
Yeah. Maybe, not sentient's the wrong word.
It's the wrong word, but
Maybe
I get what you're saying and it feels right.
it's more self-aware, right?
Yeah.
They gain an awareness that they didn't have before.
Yeah. But, like, even with it though, like, I'm just thinking about it when it comes to, like, other kind of, like, bonded creatures, animals, mythical animals that characters because this isn't the first one that's done that,
Mhm.
nor will they be the
Mhm.
last, and I will eat it up every time. But it is done differently, right? Okay, this goes back to my high stakes. Here's a character that could be pushing urine to think about things that she doesn't wanna think about, and
Mhm.
the reaction continuously was, "You're so sweet.
Yeah,
You're just so sweet."
I just love you so much.
Yeah, like, that was such an innocent question, and
Mhm.
so it felt like that was the relationship with the Fae slash urine with their Obia was just such a, like, "You're so sweet. You could say
Yeah.
anything to me, and I
Yeah.
won't think about it critically at all." Versus, like, I think you could keep the same element of, like, the childlike, the innocence there, but also the, like, "Alright, well, now I'm gonna have to mull this over."
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I think there could have been more depth to
Yeah,
the relationships between the Obia and the Fae instead of just granting each other powers,
yeah,
basically. And instead of instant love, that additional soul connection requires actual soul searching
yeah,
and wrestling
yeah,
before the acceptance.
absolutely. One last thing that I really did like about this book was the sister connection.
Okay, talk to me more about this. I'm
Oh,
curious.
I really enjoyed the love that they had for each other. It did feel I mean, though, this is someone who doesn't have sisters. I mean, I have Danielle, sorry, that's not like I have her, but I
For
wasn't
Danielle.
raised I know, poor Danielle, but I wasn't raised with sisters, like, I didn't have,
Yeah.
like, a sister to argue with growing up, and
Mhm.
I it did feel like these are 2 people characters who really love each other and annoy each other,
Mhm.
but there is a 9-year difference. So maybe the annoying part doesn't make sense because maybe it is closer to what my relationship with my sister is because my sister's 12, 13 years older than me. I can't remember, but like she's older. So we don't have that bickering relationship because I was a child. She was
Right.
grown, you
Right,
know?
right.
So I'm almost now confused about this like bickering kind of sisterly relationship they have because if there is a 9-year relationship, I did love how much they love each other.
Yeah, I mean, for me, their relationship seemed very similar to the relationship my 2 sisters have who are very close in age,
Yeah.
right? A
Yep.
lot of bickering, a lot of annoyance with each other often, but at the end of the day, they'll come to each other's rescue.
Yeah.
Whereas, my relationship with my younger sisters is more closer, more true to the age gap.
Yeah.
And I can see if I compare Lettle to my youngest sister and Urine to myself, I can see some of the same concepts of like abandonment
Mhm.
and like love, but feeling distant.
Or you need to look at me as an adult now, I'm not just a
Right.
child. Yeah.
Right, right. I do understand those things. But yeah, some there are other elements. It felt confused between two different types of sisterly relationships.
Yeah. Like, I will stick to I love how much they love each other.
Yeah.
I love that that's the core love of the book,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It did start the book started out with this core love, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that Lettel left everything to go follow her sister.
Yeah.
Yurin loves her sister. We get that.
Yeah.
At the end of the book, they both chose different.
Yeah.
Lettel chose to be with Ryan,
Yeah.
and Yurin chose the war, as
Yeah.
Lettel points out. And you could argue that Lettel could say, like, hey, I'm choosing Ryan, but also, like, you could choose here too. You know, like, it's not a
Right.
hard choice to stay
Right.
here. And so I can understand why it feels more abandonment again,
Mhm.
but it just is, like, for an interesting concept where it starts off with, you know, on some level choosing each other to at the end not.
Mhm.
I would love to see that explored more in the future books, at least.
I think that's an excellent point. And to me, I actually think that that's a great reflection of Lettel's growth
Mhm.
because Lettel chose for herself for the first time rather
Yeah.
than for her sister.
Yep.
So I get the differences, and I actually enjoyed how that journey
Mhm.
resulted for Lettel, at least.
Yeah. I finally appreciate, like, as someone who, when I read a book, the character's like, "How am I gonna choose?" I'm like, "Choose the Hawkeye. I don't know. Like, done, did it. I chose. Watch me. Let the world burn." And I finally appreciate that Lettel was like, "Yeah, no, I'm staying.
Yeah.
That's fine." I support that. Like, I just really loved she had a choice. She
Yeah.
made it. And we're
Yeah.
gonna just let it go. Move on.
Yeah.
And it was an easy choice. Like, it's the kind of choice that as a reader, I'm always so annoyed of, like, you mean you're going to leave this wonderful place that, yes, there are
Yeah.
negatives to it, but, like, you know, be with the hot king?
Yeah, I mean, Lettel chose what benefited her the most. She doesn't have a righteous bone in her body, and good for her.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't feel the need to go save people because she's never been saved herself. And that makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that goes back to our earlier conversation where Lettel as a character is consistent and makes sense.
She doesn't have a righteous bone in her body.
I meant like righteous, like fury, not as in righteous as in faithful.
I know, it just cracks me up. Like, your descriptions of characters crack me up of,
Yeah,
like,
I'm
the
sorry.
harshness where it's like, "Oh, damn. Sound like an Obi over here." Just trying to I also feel like Lettel I'm a Lettel apologist. I feel like Lettel knew her, like, where her faults were. Like,
Yeah.
she knew when she was jealous of not getting an Obia. She knew when she was jealous, like, with, Ryan talking to the other soldier.
Yeah.
She knew when she was, like, acting out. Like, she was so aware of her faults,
Yeah.
and I appreciated it when she was like, "I'm gonna lean into it." And then the clear moments of, "Fine, I'll grow.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
try." Like, it was like, I think it's that kind of self-awareness that I I like to pretend I am, you know, where it's like, I'm making a bad choice and I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get it. Like, I think with some distance, I can appreciate that. I
Yeah,
think in the
yeah.
moment, it was hard,
It is,
but
yeah.
maybe I would feel different going back and rereading.
I'm also, like, a person who's just the absolute, like, I need to tell someone something, so it's like, if I had, like, this cryptic prophecy that, like, the person I'm with is gonna die, like, I'm much more of, like, "Can we just I'm gonna tell you and we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's have me not kill you.
yeah,
Let's this is
yeah,
what I would love for us, for
yeah,
me not to kill you. Help me not
yep,
kill you."
yep. Sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, and then every time we fight, I just be like, "Hey, remember that prophecy?
Don't tempt me.
Don't tempt me. I will make that prophecy true." Yeah. So, I mean, I have hope for future books. There's talent there. Like,
Yeah,
she has a very wonderful creative mind, and I am very excited to see her progression as an author.
yeah. I think by the time the second book comes out, I'll probably read it because I
Yeah.
do find this world interesting and I do want to go back to it. So I think that there is opportunity for growth,
Yeah.
and I don't doubt that Sarah has another series as well. So I don't
Mhm.
doubt that she'll continue to grow as an author.
Yeah.
I am interested to see where she goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we'll be discussing Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you would like to submit your take on any of the books we plan to discuss later this summer, please be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we ask for listener submissions.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk.
Bye.
Hey listeners, if you guys can indulge me for a moment, I've been practicing Spanish. I am Chilean, and I just want to give a quick shout out to my Spanish tutor. Quiero mandarle un saludo a mi profesora de español chileno. Mi mamá nació en Chile y yo soy mitad chilena. El español fue mi primer idioma, pero se me olvidó por 5 meses. He estado practicando y aprendiendo, pero necesito practicar más. Así que no jueguen.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.